Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here. And welcome to a new thing that I'm going to be doing, which is reviewing older films, older episodes of TV shows. And the first episode is going to be my Superman the Movie review. Superman the Movie was the first film these eyes ever saw, and it had a lasting impression on me. This is the reason I fell in love with this character. And when you look at this film, even the behind the scenes stuff is as interesting as the actual film. This film took 2.5, 3 years to complete. Now, it all started off with a family, a Hungarian family called the Sulkines. And they had decided to make Superman. They'd also made a film called Santa Claus the Movie. They did a couple of Musketeer films as well. So what they did, they brought in Guy Hamilton, who actually directed a couple of James Bond films to direct this film. Now, they were going to film it in Italy, but then they realised it'd be cheaper to film it in London. The problem was that Guy was a tax exile and he couldn't go there. But they couldn't remain in Italy anyway because Marlon Brando had been cast as Superman's father, Jor-El. And there'd been a controversy over a film he was involved with called The Last Tango in Paris. So there was a decision to make, Guy Hamilton or Marlon Brando. Of course, they chose Marlon Brando. And so then they brought in a director called Richard Donner, who'd been very successful with the horror movie The Omen. Now, before Richard turned up, or Dick, as his friends call him, it had been written by the writer of The Godfather, Mario Puzo. But then a brother and sister team called the Newmans and Benton, I think, were they were tasked in writing the screenplay after Mario Puzo. But what happened is when Dick came on, he brought on his friend John Mankiewicz. Is it John Mankiewicz? I think it is. And Mankiewicz had also written or kind of edited screenplays for Bond films. That Bond connection there again. Now, what actually a lot of people don't know, it's actually not John Mankiewicz. Sorry, it's Tom Mankiewicz. And he's deceased now, which is a shame. A lot of respect for this guy. So what Tom did actually, what Dick got Tom to do was rewrite the whole film. Now, this is interesting because if you watch the opening credits of Superman the Movie, he's listed as a creative consultant. I don't know why they gave him that title. I think it's because the other guys needed a screenplay and a writing credit. But yes, he rewrote the whole film. And without him and Dick's involvement, I don't know what that film would have been. Now, originally, the Sulkines wanted to cast a star. They had Paul Newman, Dustin Hoffman. None of those people wanted it. Now, when Dick came in, he decided that he wanted an unknown because he felt if you have Newman, it's Paul Newman flying on the screen. It's not Superman. So the casting guy said, well, how about Christopher Reeve? Now, Richard Donner kind of met him and said, well, you're this skinny kid. And well, Chris said, listen, I'm doing a play and come and see it. They loved the play. So they built him up and Chris was cast to play Superman. When reviewing a film that's this old, it's very important, I think, that we don't compare it to modern day movies, whether it's modern day Superman films or superhero films. Because I don't think it's fair on modern films and I don't think it's fair on a film this old, comparing the visual effects. But I think this still stands up as a masterpiece. I mean, Kevin Feige, who literally runs the MCU, has said that he looks at the blueprint of Superman the Movie and he's tried to hold the same things dear to what Dick did with Superman the Movie. What makes Superman the Movie a special film then? It's a special film because it is very loyal to what Superman is. But what's great about this film is it's kind of a three-part movie. You're on Krypton, you're on Smallville, and then you're in Metropolis. And it really does tell the full story. When you look at Superman flying, as you can see behind me right now, the effects, for me, no one's got Superman's flying right since this film. I mean, he looks great in Man of Steel, but I still think, as a director, as I am, from a filmmaking standpoint, he looks great. Now, part of the reason for this is that they invented lots of kind of practices to do this. This film was a groundbreaking film, and it didn't come that, I mean, it pretty much came after Star Wars. They had a guy, was it John Barry? I think that's his name. And he got involved and he designed Krypton and he made it look beautiful. But this film looked beautiful, especially at the time. I mean, now you may say, oh, well, you know, but no, for me, the film was groundbreaking and it's a timeless film. Now, before Dick turned up, as I said, they cast Marlon Brando as Jor-El, which is Superman's father. Now, Brando was a very unique character. So when Dick went to meet him, he says, this is a funny thing that I've seen in the behind the scenes. He felt that maybe Jor-El should look like a bagel. A bagel, yes. Everyone from Krypton should look like a bagel, and they don't talk. So basically, Dick said to him, you do realise that Superman's been around since 1938 in the comics. Everybody knows who Jor-El looks like. And after that, he was fine and he allowed magazines to interview him and still things like that, because originally he didn't want anyone coming in or the press or anything like that. So, but Brando, obviously an icon, a method actor. And what he used to do, he used to have these scripts on the floor. So when he looked, the words would come out naturally. That's literally what method means. So, a very unique character, but the casting for this film was amazing. You had Christopher Reeve, you had Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, again, a very iconic actor, and made his name on the French Connection movies. If you compare his Lex Luthor to Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville, or even Spacey, you could say this is not an iconic Lex Luthor. This isn't a Lex Luthor from the comics. He's not a mad scientist. He's not a businessman. He's a criminal. He's a small-time criminal who's living underground, and his whole thing is that he's trying to buy up all this land and try and make it worth more by destroying like California with all these missiles. But still, the film works with what they do. The characters in this film totally come to life, but one of the biggest achievements of this film is the dual role that Christopher Reeve plays as Superman and Clark. Because what Chris does and what Dick and Chris come up with beautifully is that Clark and Superman really are played as two different characters. No one has successfully done this before. He really did pull it off. How Chris didn't win an Oscar or get nominated for an Oscar, when you think about the hilarity now with them insisting that Black Panther wins Best Film and multiple of awards. Superman the movie did get some nominations, but as far as I'm concerned, it should have won a lot. The achievements of this film are insurmountable, especially back in the time. So John Williams was tasked in doing the music. Originally it was Jerry Goldsmith, then it was John Williams, then John Williams couldn't do it, Jerry came in, Jerry couldn't do it, then John came back. Thankfully, John Williams came back, and of course the Superman theme is iconic. It really is a beautiful theme. One of the most memorable things for me from this film is the opening credits and how the credits come into your face, and that music, the grandstand aspect of that music and credits are beautiful. Then you're outside of Krypton and the camera slowly zooms in as you hear that beautiful Krypton theme. And I just think it's brilliant. Now, originally the whole idea was that they wanted to film Superman and Superman 2 together, which they did. Now, unfortunately, Dick Donner fell out with the Salkinds, and they brought in Richard Lester to do Superman 2. And Dick's talked about this, if he was allowed to stay. Him and Tom Mankiewicz had ideas for Superman 2, Superman 3, and a Superman 4. It really would have been a great franchise. But ultimately, it wasn't a great franchise. And with Dick and Tom not involved anymore, that was a tragedy for me. But if we focus on this film, it's brilliant. Again, one of the major success stories of this film is the relationship between Clark, Superman, and Lois Lane. Margot Kidder is, for me, the greatest Lois Lane. I mean, I love Erica Durance's Lois Lane from Smallville. I think she definitely is joint with Margot. Margot recently died, tragically. Margot had a lot of problems with mental health in her life, but she was a great Lois Lane. She really was. She really did sell it. And as we say today, she really was a strong female character. I mean, she'd been a strong female character in the comics already, but Margot and Dick Donner and Tom Mankiewicz really did something special with her. And we all fell in love with her, and she was as important as Christopher Reeve and that relationship. So when her car gets buried with all that earth and she suffocates and dies, the biggest moment of the film is when Superman screams to the heavens and attempts to go back in time, and he can hear his father's voice. "My son, it is forbidden for you to interfere in human history." And he breaks the rules. He breaks the rules to bring her back. And I remember at the time saying, oh, it's not me saying it, but people around me saying, oh, you could never do that, go back in time. It didn't even make sense to me, but I didn't care because it was so emotional and dramatic what Superman was willing to do to bring her back. Now, one of the things I didn't understand is, if you've gone back in time from before the missile goes, right, wouldn't all that happen again? And shouldn't we see him, like, saving everyone again? But they didn't really do that. But anyway, I love this film. And I don't really want to talk about its flaws. I want to talk about its positives. And its positives are multiple. You've got Jackie Cooper, who was a really great child actor. Now, he was a great Perry White. Now, actually, someone else was meant to play Perry White, but he had a heart attack and he couldn't play him. So they quickly just got on the phone and said, hey, Aces, we need you in here now. No script, you've got to come now. And absolutely an amazing performance. Then you've got an actor like Ned Beatty playing Otis, which is kind of Lex Luthor's partner in crime. And then you've got Valerie Perrine as Miss Tessmacher. Again, brilliant. So those three were absolutely great quality. So funny. A lot of fun. This movie was just pure entertainment. And it made so many people fall in love with Superman. And so many filmmakers today are inspired by that film. And, you know, when you look at Christopher Nolan with Batman Begins, he took on a lot of similarities in his process of making that film, just as Dick did with that. In fact, there's a video on YouTube of Dick Donner and Chris Nolan talking about Batman Begins and Superman the movie. But I think one of the great aspects was having really well-known actors around Chris. Because back then, superheroes on film weren't heard of. It was a massive thing, and I don't think people would have went to see it if it wasn't a good film. It broke the mold. To make a Superman movie, make people believe a man can fly, which was the tagline of the film. You will believe a man can fly. And we did. The whole thing was absolutely beautiful. The film was emotional. It was funny. And the most important thing is you looked up to Superman. Now, people today compare that Superman film to their favourite live-action Supermans like Smallville, Man of Steel, Superman Returns. Some people say, oh, it's dated. For me, it's a timeless classic. It absolutely is. And it really did resonate with me. It's a film I will never forget. And incidentally, it's the 40th anniversary. And next week, I'm going to go to the cinema to watch this film on a cinema screen for the first time. Because when I first watched it, it premiered on ITV. And it was a very special evening for me. I'd never read a comic before. The only thing I knew about Superman was those adverts, anti-smoking adverts they did, where he was going up against this supervillain called Nicotine. Now, I actually thought Nicotine was from the comics. And I said to my dad, why isn't nicotine in this film? I didn't know. But yeah, that's all I knew of the character. And for me, I loved the character. He was powerful, he was pure, and you just looked in Christopher Reeve's eyes and you believed you were seeing a good man, a pure man. It really, really, the whole thing absolutely worked, from the music to the effects. And they worked really hard. It was really stressful for Dick Donner having to deal with the Salkinds, who wanted to cut the costs because it got too much for them. It got out of control because Warner Brothers were just distributing Superman the movie. But everyone wanted this movie to be finished. And once it did, it was something really special. And it's lasted today. And I think it's lasted today because everyone who made that film, as Dick Donner always says, was a Superman fan. And I think that's really important because back then the attitudes were different. They wanted to make a film, a special film. It wasn't about anything else. I think right now the attitudes have changed. Things have become so political. But back then, I mean, that scene there when he's running after the train, beautiful, beautiful. I mean, nowadays you just do all that in the computer because, of course, back then they had a couple of special effects kind of studios, but special effects weren't that advanced back then. And as I said on the top of the show, they had to invent a lot of things. And I still believe, I really do believe this, that the flying on Superman is better than any flying I've really seen. Because the angles, you see him close up, you see him from a distance, you see him flash past. It was really good. This really is a film that makes you feel $1 million after you've seen it. And it's a film I'll never forget.